We said we might do something different during this international break. It's taken us to the end of the international break to actually get there because there's been so much doom and gloom. I'd just firstly like to thank everybody for their concerns on yesterday's video. There were people were very, very concerned about me. I'm much better now. I was genuinely laughing. Do you know what? All right. Sometimes people, they do a laughing emoji when they're not really laughing. Sometimes people write LOL or PMSL, and you think you're not laughing at all. I'm telling you, I was genuinely in hysterics reading the comments while everyone was trying to guess at my medical conditions, that what they might have been yesterday. You're very creative, very wonderful, and we got the man over there to thank for stirring the pot. Anyway,
bit of fun.
It was a bit of fun. I really enjoyed it, actually. There was one point I was actually waiting. Funny enough, for completely unassociated reasons, I was waiting in a queue at the chemist. You put your thing in, you have to wait, you have to sit down. And I was reading the comments on my phone. Everyone sort of looked. What's he got to be happy about? Holding that hemorrhoid cream. Anyway, Gio, we've got some questions today, which are left over from our Muggety on Patreon, right?
Yes, we do. Let's kick it off then. Carl's asking what younger players have to come to the bench, considering 4 players could be going to African nations, plus what we sell won't be available either. So this could be one of the smallest squads we've had in our history over a season.
Yeah, well, I've got to assume, Carl, that we're not going to get business done very, very early in January. Now, that is an assumption. Maybe there's some evidence to suggest Steiter might be heavily involved. He might get it wrapped up quickly. But let's assume that it doesn't happen in the first week in January. So I think the African Cup nations start on the 11th or something like that. They're not just going to fly out there on the 10th, are they? They're going to go for a little team meeting and a little tournament training camp and whatnot, get settled into their hotels. So let's say from the start of January, I would be amazed if Kadua doesn't get called up. Now, when I say amazed, actually, I wouldn't be amazed. That's the wrong word. I would, if I was Kadua, I'd want to know the reason, because I do think we're going to be a little bit light on the flanks. We're going to get to Benrahma and Cornet in a little bit in this video, but we're just assuming 4 people at the moment. I would also be inclined, and this has nothing to do with positionally. So if you stay positionally, we're missing centre-back, 2 wide players and a forward, if you like. Let's call it that for argument's sake. That doesn't mean I expect a centre-back, 2 wide players, the forward to be called up. It just creates room on the bench, which I guess what you're talking about, Carl. I think that affords an opportunity to have a look maybe at Dan Chester's or Ollie Scarles. I think it's a problem position, fullback, that's going to be quite important in the next 2 or 3 years. So I'd definitely bring one of those guys in for sure. What about you, Gio?
I don't think you'll see any of them in the matchday squad. None. They are involved in training the last couple of weeks. Lewis Horford is one of the ones that's involved in first team training because they need the numbers. So when certain players go away for international duty, if Moyes wants to have 11v11 in training, he needs to make up the numbers somehow. So he goes into the 21s, and Lewis Horford has been training with the first team in the last couple of weeks while probably covering for Thomas Souček and Edson Alvarez, who scored last night. Did you see it? Alvarez
didn't.
Scored.
No.
They played during the night. Mexico were 2-0 up. Was it 2-0 up? Yeah, they were 2-0 up in the first leg, the first game, and then they were 2-0 down in this game, so it was 2-2 overall. Edson Alvarez scored in the 101st minute.
Wow, that's some additional time.
So had the captain's armband on as well for Mexico.
What minute did he get his card in?
I don't know if I don't even know if he was booked. I just seen.
I hope he was. He'd be ruining his reputation if he wasn't.
Anyway, just seen the clip of him scoring. So I think the younger players will be involved to make up the numbers probably. But there's only 4, and I say only. We have a big squad. We do. The problem would be we've also got injuries on top of that. But we've just heard that Antonio is probably going to be back by this point. So while yes, we'll be losing those attackers, we'll still have. In theory, Antonio's our striker, Boone on the right, Paquette on the left. Our midfield 3 doesn't change. So our starting 11 might be not impacted defensively, of course, with the good. So I think there'll be some youngsters involved in training. We might see 1 or 2 on the bench if we need them for numbers. But in terms of minutes in the first team, no chance. I don't see it at all. But this is why you assemble a big squad. The bigger problem for me isn't necessarily the youngsters not being involved. It's actually the fact that in January, we may rely on the likes of Pablo Fornals, who's had very little minutes. So when they do get taken into the team, there's no form, there's no momentum, there's no confidence whatsoever. And actually, you'd be better using a younger player because they'll have the confidence, the momentum, the enthusiasm, the future at West Ham. They'll have all those things in their favour. The only thing they're lacking is experience, but they'll have everything else that you need. Whereas you bring in Fornals, who does have the experience, knows how to play the role, but probably won't be capable due to lack of match practice, lack of confidence and stuff. So will we see them? No, I don't think so. I'll be amazed if we see any of the youngsters at all this season, truth be told, unless we have when we play Freiburg, if we've already guaranteed top spot, then I think you'll get to see a few of them play. But apart from a meaningless game, I don't think you'll see them at all, Gonzo.
It's amazing just listening to what you're saying there, and it makes absolute sense. So he's going to call on Fornals, or he'll call on Tilo Kehrer or Maxwel Cornet. We'll speak about in a minute. And that's absolutely right. It makes absolute sense what you're saying. But it's total hypocrisy from David Moyes because by his own set of criteria, they wouldn't be ready because this is the same manager who, when he signs a player, if they haven't been playing games, will say, oh, we can't put him in yet because they're not ready. Yeah, he'll do it if they're already in his own squad. Anyway, there we go. Speaking, have we got a question on Cornet or Benrahma or something, haven't we?
Not specifically, because obviously when we did Mugger Tea last week, international breaks happen now. But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that nobody's spoken about the fact that Maxwel Cornet and Saeed Benrahma weren't even called up. So we're all just assuming they're going to African nations. But yet the latest squad, which was important games, by the way, this is the World Cup qualifiers they're playing in. They're not playing in friendlies. Right now, they're playing in the World Cup qualifiers. Obviously, I think sometimes because we're obviously European based and we've got the Euros on our mind already to some extent, you have this illusion that the internationals 2 months before the tournament is friendlies to get ready for the tournament, which would be correct. But African nations is in January, so you might assume that they're playing friendlies at the minute to get ready, but they're not. They're playing World Cup qualifiers. Saeed Benrahma wasn't in the Algeria squad, and Maxwel Cornet was not in the Ivory Coast squad. So unless there's a sharp upturn of their form in the next month, because the squads for the African nations will be out in a month.
Yep.
The squads will be finalised. I'd be surprised if they get called up, actually. So I think we'll lose Kudus and Agard, yes. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's all we lose in the January transfer window, unless we make a signing that goes to the African nations. Then we might lose him as well.
Well, I mean that is interesting. The interesting thing is they're out for them. They're out for two different reasons, Cornet and Benrahma. So Benrahma has not been selected because he basically had touchline. Let's call it fisticuffs. It sounds better. He had touchline fisticuffs with his manager. It was the weirdest episode. We sort of featured it briefly, but only put a still image up. I don't think we didn't run the clip on here. I probably wouldn't have risked that. But he's coming off the pitch for his country. The manager's called him off the pitch. As he's walking off, the manager sort of patted him on the shoulder. So as he's walking past him, he sort of patted him on the shoulder like that. But there was no exchange of hands. Now, I say exchange of hands. I don't mean they removed their hands and gave them to one another. That would be quite interesting, wouldn't it? No, what they did was he walked past him. He went to shake his hand, but I don't think Benrahma knew he wanted to shake his hand. So he sort of patted him on the back. The manager patted him on the back as, I don't know, as sort of like just want to do something to say, well done, son, you're being substituted or whatever. And then he sort of became affronted by it. And then he sort of grabbed Benrahma by the shirt. And then I think he thought better of it. And he probably realised loads of cameras are on him and you probably can't beat your player up when you substitute them. So that was a really weird one. So I think that's probably got more to do with Benrahma not being involved, is that Cornet, if I was Cornet, I'd be fuming. I've got to say, I'd be fuming because his is probably his manager saying, you're not playing football. You can't be in the squad. And if that's the case, if I was Cornet, I would want out of West Ham and I'd want out in January. I'm thinking if I can't even, because don't forget, let's be aware, Ivory Coast, I believe, are hosting it. So he's going to be saying, hold on, this is the most prestigious time in my career. My country are hosting the event. I signed for West Ham, and now because I've not been playing, I'm not going to play. And probably the event I dreamed of playing in as a kid in my home country. It's my dream when he was kicking a ball around in the park or in his back garden or whatever. That's probably what he dreamed of. So yeah, I think that's really interesting.
And the person that stole his spot in the squad and started on the left Ivory Coast in the last game was Adingra, who plays for Brighton, 21-year-old. So he's lost his place to a youngster at Brighton. And our manager won't play the youth. Our manager won't play youth players because they've not got the experience. And Maxwel Cornet's out of the team because the manager won't play him either, who does have the experience. But yeah, at Brighton, down the road, or up the road rather, someone's now in the Ivory Coast squad at Maxwel Cornet's expense, 21 years old, playing Premier League football. So, yeah, Cornet's not in it. But maybe David Moyes has been playing 4D chess. Maybe Moyes has been thinking, if I don't play Cornet or Benrahma, they won't go to African nations. Then in January, I'm going to put them in my team to cover. They're going to replace Kudus. Maybe Moyes was actually playing 4D chess with everyone.
Well, that would work with Cornet, but it can't work with Benrahma. So what he must have done with Benrahma, for him to do that, he must have instigated the row. So I reckon he told the Algerian coach that Benrahma had said something nasty about him. And that's why, you're bloody Benrahma. I have sympathy for Benrahma on this one, actually.
Maybe he told Benrahma, you should be able to dye your hair when you play for Algeria. Do you know how you like being blonde? You got to dye it back before you go.
It might be, but it's tough. Having watched the footage, I didn't think the manager was there holding out his hand.
No,
it didn't strike me as that Benrahma had shunned. I don't think Benrahma did anything wrong. Don't be wrong. Did he walk off a little bit like that? He did. I would imagine there's just loads of players that do that. And he got substituted. That's that. So, I mean, I think, for him, he's going to have to grovel, isn't he? I think to get back.
That manager would behead Chicharito. Remember when he used to get subbed off at West Ham? He'd be like, he'd throw his arms, he'd do that thing with his lips, the thing, as if saying, what are you subbing me for? I'm Javier Hernandez, can't sub me. Imagine him doing that with the Algeria manager. Get his legs broke as soon as he got off the pitch. So.
I'll tell him, mate, honestly. He's just affronted. To be fair, I understand it. I like people to have good manners as well. He should have been with me in Tesco the other day when no one was holding the door open. He'd have gone mad. Anyway, that's a conversation for our other podcast, which is the Naked podcast, which we might be sharing with you, actually, very, very soon on this channel.
Just to end on good news before we disappear, Kudus played the second half for Ghana yesterday afternoon as well. Although reports are saying he's had a sore back for a while now.
Yeah.
Which, well, I'm sorry, but if we're going to play him with a sore back, Ghana are well within their rights to call him up and say we'll have him as well. We can't play him and then go, he shouldn't be playing for you. He's got a sore back. Well, tough. You've been playing him, so they're going to play him as well. So I think Ghana are well within their rights to call him up and use him, even though he's got a sore back, because we've been doing it too. So Kudus should be available for the weekend. Antonio's injury is not that bad. Bowen's a bit touch and go for Saturday. The expectation is he won't make it, but I'm hoping the club are just being a little bit. Maybe I'm being a bit naive. I'm just hoping the club are just playing this one a little bit deceitful with Jared Bowen.
Surely not. West Ham and deceit. Don't be ridiculous, yeah. Absolutely preposterous. Thank you, everybody that sent in the questions for our mug of tea. That's available over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Hammers Chat. You want to get involved? It's a great way to support Hammers Chat. Allows us to continue to do videos on both channels. Inherently, it is our third channel over on Patreon. Loads and loads of stuff. We've got a new podcaster coming up. Very, very interesting announcement coming up hopefully very, very soon. Normal service will be resumed. Football's coming back, so next few days on all Hammers Chat channels, you can expect to see the videos that you're used to seeing because we've got some football back. We won't be talking about. I hope we're not talking about injuries anymore. There you go, Gio. Cheers, mate.
Ta-da!